Hey there, my name is Cole Adams, and you are watching the best college basketball podcast out there that covers the entire sport of college basketball, brackets, bubbles, and bid stealers. Now, here are your hosts, Sam Fetterman and Jonathan Lidskin.
Season 6, episode 29 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. I am Sam Fetterman. That is Jonathan Lidskin. Jonathan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Sam. Very excited for this one. We got a couple more after these, but the Mizzou preview, always one of my favorites that we do in terms of previews during the year.
Jonathan, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yeah, Matt Watkins joining us for, I think, Matt, is this the third straight year that you've done the Mizzou preview with us?
That sounds right.
So, yeah, first year, didn't go so well for Mizzou the first year you did the preview with us. Second year went a lot better. Mizzou gets a 6 seed in the tournament last year, was full a three seed at one point during the season, fell off a little bit down the stretch, and then ran into a really tough Drake team. But Matt is over at Rock M. Very good Mizzou site. Recommend you guys check it out if you're interested in probably I'd say the best Mizzou coverage that I've seen personally. They do a bunch of great stuff over there. Matt and his colleagues. Sam, you ready to get right into this?
Yeah, let's get into this. Matt, again, thanks for joining us. Mizzou
Sure.
brings back two key players, a couple more than two, but two that I really want to focus on from last year's team, and Anthony Robinson and Mark Mitchell, two guys that took steps up last year. Mitchell coming over from Duke and providing some real much needed physicality and versatility-ish in the front court, and Robinson with the way that he played on both ends of the floor, how hard he plays, how well he gets to the basket and to the line, and the impact that he can have when he does stay on the floor defensively. Those two are the keys once again for this Mizzou team. Would you guys agree?
For sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead,
I was
Matt.
just going to say, I think you hit on a good point that Anthony Robinson, when he can stay on the floor, he was plagued by that a little bit last year. But my contention is that he was so good when he was on the floor and performing that inconsistency is the only reason he's back in college this year.
Yeah, I think that the reason you didn't see Mizzou go after a big star in the portal this year is because they probably expect to return to all-conference guys. Mitchell obviously being the former all-conference guy, and then a lot of people at this point think Anthony Robinson's due for a pretty big step next year and elevate himself into NBA draft prospect talks.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at his on-off numbers at Hoop Explorer, at Evan Mia, wherever you get them. They're really, really impressive. Obviously, the foul trouble it is something that we need to keep an eye on with him. It's the thing that we talked about with Robinson last year, and I think it's probably part of and I think there is some of that reason that the on-off splits are so high is because he only played a certain amount of minutes, and maybe it's not the same if it's 30 minutes instead of 22 minutes, but it's still something that needs to be. It's still something that is very, very. It's positive for him just how much of an impact he makes by looking at the on-off stuff. So, where do you think there's a room for another step forward? Obviously, aside from fouling less.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fouling was a problem. He would get himself into some foul trouble with not only silly fouls defensively from being aggressive, but probably more importantly on the offensive end. That's where he really, I think, you could sense some frustration in his game where he'd barrel through a defender and pick up a charge out on the perimeter that didn't need to happen. But there were times even when he wasn't in foul trouble that he wasn't fully, I don't want to say engaged because that gives the wrong impression, but he wasn't performing to the fullest extent. So, getting to that, but, I think a big part of it will be is that last year, at times, my perception with Mizzou is they were a very talented team, but I think they kind of lacked an offensive identity. They tried being a lot of things in a lot of different ways. You had Caleb Grill, who's obviously incredibly hot, probably one of the best players in the country for a solid month and a half span. Then he kind of tailed off towards the end of the year. Mark Mitchell, when he went up against really physical, athletic front lines, he wasn't the same player. Then you've got guys like Marquez Warwick and Tamar Bates, perimeter players who like to shoot the ball. Tony Perkins over at Iowa didn't really ever get into the full flow. And I think there was kind of a competition and an inconsistency from game to game on who was going to be the offensive identity for the team. And I think this year, simply by subtracting some of those players, you get that. Now, whether he'll be able to step into that role and be more of a primetime player is another question. But I think the opportunity for a more streamlined, more consistent role will be there for him.
Matt, you there?
I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. But yeah,
I don't know if that was my connection or if it was someone else's.
Yeah, to kind of go off what you were saying, Matt, I think the stuff about the offensive identity last year is important. Like, this was obviously a team that shot threes very well, and they have shot like Dennis Gates wants his team to shoot threes